Hey, hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Nawal Emil. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Data Master. In this playlist, we are looking at the Delta Live table, where we are going to talk about the Delta Live table pipeline creation by using a sample dataset. So let us start now. To get the Delta Live table, you can navigate to the data engineering section, and here you have a Delta Live table tab. You can just hit on this. It will take you to the Delta Live table section. That is the first way how we can navigate to the DLT. And the second way, you can simply click on the workflows. And as I've already told, that when it comes to workflows, there are two parts here. One is jobs, that is simply called as a workflow for automating task orchestration. And we have a second tab called the Delta Live tables. So this is specially designed for data engineers, those who are doing an ETL, data quality checks, those who want to build a pipeline, schedule it, monitor it, implement CDC data, SCD type 1, type 2 implementation, all can be done using this Delta Live table. So first we are going to implement using a sample data set that is provided by the Databricks, and then we are going to create our own DLT pipeline with our own use case. So let us start creating a sample pipeline. Just hit on create a sample pipeline, and the moment you hit on create a sample pipeline, it will ask you for the configuration details. So we need to configure, we need to put all these details for the pipeline. So it's just like a pipeline, and we are giving a configurations to that. So you can start giving a name for your pipeline. In general section, you can just say it's a DLT sample data or so on. I'll say DLT pipeline or sample. Okay, sample. And when it comes to source code, okay, we are using a Databricks datasets. Which language do you prefer for a sample notebooks? There are two options. As I told you, DLT works on SQL and Python. Let us stick to SQL now. Okay. If you wish to have a Python, you can click on Python. So in your workspace, there will be one folder, and you will get a notebook in either SQL or Python, depending on what option you have chosen here. I'll choose SQL, so definitely I'll be getting a SQL code. Then the second is it's asking me for the destination. It's like a target schema. Where do you want to store all these tables? In which schema do you want? So I'll just write a schema name. For example, DLT sample, or maybe NY sample, something like that. Okay, I'll just write sample DLT, and you can give any name. This is just like a this is just like your schema name or your database name. Now it's asking you the compute. We do not have any compute policies set up. If your organization has set up a compute policies for your DLT pipeline, you can choose it from here, but now we do not have any compute. So these are very basic configurations, but once we click on create, we will be getting inside the Delta Live table pipelines. There we can go into settings option to get more configurations. We are going to do that, and then we're going to understand how your Delta Live table UI looks like and what are the features we are going to see. So the moment I click on create, okay, before that you can see there is a summary. It is showing you like it is consuming you around 2 to 6 dbu per hour. So dbu is Databricks units. Now you might be thinking like, I did not choose any compute, how come you are getting a dbus here? So this is at a very high level configurations, but once we create a pipeline, this is from a sample data set. Try to understand, it's a sample data set. But once we get inside a Delta Live table pipeline, you get a UI from where we can again do our settings on the compute. Let me just hit on create. And the moment you click on create, you will be creating a pipeline, and the pipeline name is DLT pipeline. I'll just go to the workflow now. Before I explain you this, I'll just jump back again to the workflow. Let me get inside a DLT, and wow, you can see here a DLT pipeline sample is created for you, and every pipeline it is creating, it will show you an ID here. Okay, so every pipeline has an ID, and it will show you who created it. In my case, it's my name here. You can start your pipeline from here, but before we start, let us try to understand what is the UI, how the DLT UI looks like, and so on. So now we are into the DLT pipeline UI. Let me just collapse this. to get some more space. Now, your DLT UI looks something like this, where you have three sections. First is a graph. So whatever the tables that are getting created inside this pipeline can be seen here in the graph. Second is your event logs. So you can see at the bottom you have all the event logs. So when your pipeline started, who started this, if there is any errors, if there is any warning, all the informations can be tracked in this events tab only. In the workflow jobs, still you can get an events by just getting inside the runs tab, and we have to do a few clicks, we get all the details. But here in the same tab you get all the event logs. I'll just close this, and whenever you want you can maximize this by just clicking on this view logs. And on the right side we have the details about the pipeline. A pipeline ID, as I've shown you, it's at a DLT level also, you can see it. It shows you that it's a ETL pipeline, extract, transform, load a pipeline. And oh, you got a source code. Now remember, the source code is a sample data. We have chosen a sample data from the Databricks, and they are providing the source for us. Now if you check like what is the source code, you can just go to your workspace. In the workspace, let me get inside this, and oh, not here, sorry. Yeah, you can see there is one sample data, that is create pipeline from sample data. Let me just click on it, and here you got your DLT pipeline notebook. So let me click on it, and you can see there is a SQL syntax. In while creating a pipeline, if you have clicked on Python, the syntax would be of Python, but we'll stick to the SQL. It's so simple. And what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to cover all the DLT UI. Let us try to understand all that UI. We'll start a pipeline, and then we'll come to the second part, that is looking at the SQL code. So what exactly the SQL code is, we are going to see it. So there are only 5 cells here. You can see 5 cells. So each cell will create a new node, a new table. For example, here customers table is created, here sales order table is created, sales order clean table is created, and some aggregations, some business level questions like sales order in LA and then the sales order in Chicago. So these tables would be created. Let me just go back to my workflow again, go to the DLT and click on DLT sample pipeline. Cool. So we tried to navigate to the source code, and we looked at the source code. It's all about the SQL code. We are going to go in detail about that code in few minutes. In part 2 we are going to see that. Now let me explain you the icons here at the top. So we have a pipeline mode. So when it comes to DLT, you need to understand there are 2 modes. One is development mode and the second one is production mode. So development, as a name itself indicates, if you are developing something, if you want to test out something, you want to iterate something, you can use a development mode. Development mode helps you like to complete a pipeline, and once your pipeline is completed, your compute will run for a couple of hours. So as I told you, when it comes to compute, it's a job compute. Always remember, in Delta Live table, it's a job compute. You cannot use a all-purpose compute in the DLT. It's just a job compute, and to be very precise, it's a DLT pipeline job compute. Okay. So in development mode, your pipeline will execute and your job compute keeps on running for a couple of hours. To be very specific, it will be approximately 2 hours. It will keep on running 2 hours. You can manually terminate it. You can just go to the job compute and terminate it if you're not using it. But in general, development mode keeps on running your job compute for a couple of hours, approximately 2 hours. Now you can switch to the production mode. I'm talking about a DLT mode, development mode, and the production mode. In production mode, your pipeline will execute, and once the pipeline executes, your job compute will immediately terminate. Immediately it will terminate. If you ask me exactly how much time, maybe in few minutes it gets terminated. So your job compute won't keep on running it. So this is exactly designed for your production environment where you don't want to do any iterations, you don't want to try out any new things. and it's developed and you want to run it, then you go for the production environment. I mean, you go for the production mode. Okay. So now we are going to test out something. We are going to try how it looks like and so on. Let me keep it on the development mode. Development mode. Then we have a settings tab. So when we created a sample pipeline, we got few configuration details, but that was on a very high level. But now we are going to go deep and try to do some other settings. Just hit on the settings. These are again a pipeline settings. So you can see general, we have already given the name. Just in case if you want to change, you can change the name of your pipeline. Then we have a product edition. So when it comes to DLT, there are three product edition. One is core, pro, and the advanced. Advanced has all the features. Like you can get everything in advanced. Everything means data quality checks. You can use the constraints there. You can implement S3 type 1, type 2. You can handle CDC data, everything. But obviously the costing of advanced is higher than these two. If you want to know exact what are the differences, what would be the pricing, you can just click on this. That will take you to the page that will help you to choose which product edition you can choose. I have seen few enterprises, those who are smartly using core and pro also, depending on the use case. Moving further, we have a pipeline mode. So this will confuse you as a beginners. You might be thinking, just now I told you about the pipeline, that we were talking about the DLT mode, that was development and production. Now we have a pipeline mode called trigger and continuous. So let me make it very simple. Triggered means it's just like a batch. You have all the data, your pipeline will run, and depending on the compute, it will keep on running for a few hours or it will terminate. If you switch to the continuous mode, it assumes that it's a streaming data. It will keep on thinking that the new data might come. Depends on the trigger, what trigger you have mentioned it. If you have not mentioned it, it keeps on triggering it at every half second. It's a streaming data. So if you are looking at some stream applications, we can go for continuous pipeline mode. If you are sticking to the batch data, just stick onto the trigger. In this case, we are going to use a trigger mode only. Now, the next configuration details, we need to give a source code. We haven't selected any source code. It's automatically selected because we are using a sample pipeline or a sample data set. Next session, we are going to see how to use our own data set. Then we are going to add a source from here. Then destination, you can choose it. Like, do you want a Hive Metastore or a Unity catalog? In sample data set, we cannot switch to the Unity catalog. We can just stick to the Hive Metastore. We will stick to the Hive Metastore, but when we start our own use case, we will jump to the Unity catalog. You get a chance again to change your schema name because we haven't run your pipeline yet. So if this schema is available, I mean, if this database is there, it will just keep on adding the tables to that database. If it's not there, it will create a new one. That was all about the destinations. Then we have a compute. Oh, it's a job compute. Try to remember, it's always a job compute. Now you get an option to set up a cluster policies. In organization, generally we set up a policies, but here I have not set up any policies. Then it's about the cluster mode. You can choose it from the enhanced auto scaling or quick size. So auto scaling means you can jump it from minimum to maximum. You can see here minimum to maximum. It's a job compute, but I don't think so. For this sample data set, I'll not go with the higher compute size. Let me make it as fixed. And the workers, what I am thinking is 0 workers. I don't need any workers. There will be only one driver node that will be working. And now if you are thinking like, oh, one driver with how many cores, how much GB of data, we have a chance to select that compute instance type also, worker type and the driver type here. I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. Then you have a photon acceleration. Photon acceleration will just boost up your queries. If you feel that it is taking a long time to run the queries, you can use this acceleration. It is written in C++, that will help you to boost up your queries. But the cost of photon acceleration is almost 4 times, 5 times more than the normal one. I'll not enable it now. You have a cluster tags, like if you have many clusters, adding a tags is the best practice. You have a notifications tab. You can just click on add a notification. You can put your email addresses and you can get notified when your pipeline is succeeded, when pipeline is failed, and so on. Okay, you can get notified. Then you have an advanced configurations. For example, you can pass a key value pair. In your notebooks, if you have created any widgets and if you want to pass a parameters, we can use this configurations in advanced tab. Now in this sample notebook, we do not have anything, but as we progress further in our own sample dataset, maybe we'll try to use this key value feature, that is passing a parameters. Then we have an instance type. We haven't chosen any worker type. Workers are 0, so there's no question about choosing the worker type. But in the driver type, you get a chance to choose. Now, so I'm talking about something on the infrastructure side. I have enabled more cores on this node type, or if you are confused and if you don't want to go with that driver type, and if you want Delta Live table to choose the best compute which is available and then attach it and run, you can do that. You can just click on save and run this, not an issue. But I want to choose a very specific driver type, and that is DC4AS with 4 cores only. Okay, with 4 cores. I'll tell you the reason now, because I have chosen this because in my Azure quotas, these computes are available. I know it, so I'm taking this. If you are not aware, do not worry. Just it's an optional. You can see these are optional. You don't choose anything. Just click on save. Just click on save and you don't do anything. After all your settings, you can do a scheduling. You can just click on the scheduling and you can add a schedule going to the advanced, whether you want it to run your pipeline every day, every minute, every hour. You can do that scheduling. You can use a cron syntax also, or you can go to the time zone and choose your time zone, maybe 5:30 IST, something like that, and you can click on this. So now I'm not going to the scheduling part. Let us keep it simple. Let us try to run your pipeline first, and then let us try to understand the SQL syntax that the Databricks sample dataset is using, and then we'll try to schedule it later on. So now I'll be just clicking on start. As I told you, this will be our part 1, explaining you a complete DLT UI. Once I started, I'm going to show you a couple of things. First, I'll show you the graph that is getting generated. Second, I'm going to show you the compute that is running behind the scene. That will be a job compute. And then the tables. I'm going to show you the tables that are getting created. And then we are going to jump to the part 2, that is looking at the SQL code. Now let me just click on start, and the moment I click on start, you can see you got a beautiful graph saying that it is creating an update and now it's waiting for the resource. Now what does the waiting for the resource means? It is actually starting a job compute behind the scene. So it is just waiting for the job compute to start. Once the job compute is started, it will attach to this pipeline and it starts running it. So can I see that? Yes, you can just go to the compute section. I'll just open it in a new tab, and in the compute section you can jump onto the job compute, and oh cool, you can see here there is one instance that is just waiting to start. As I told you, the type of this compute would be a pipeline, and you can see you got a ID for this, and whatever the configurations we have set up in the pipeline, you can see here. Now this compute will take 3 to 4 minutes to start. The startup time for all purpose compute and the job compute is more. It will take 4 minutes, 5 minutes to start. And once this pipeline has started, it will automatically attach it to the pipeline and it will initialize it. Then it will show you the tables and then the graph will be rendered. Okay. So let us wait for a couple of minutes. Let the job compute starts. And remember, once your pipeline executes, this compute will keep on running for a couple of hours because we use the mode called development mode. You can see here it is selected as a development mode. Compute will keep on running. If we want to do some quick iterations, we can still do it. Okay, let me pause it for a few minutes. So you can see here it took almost 4 to 5 minutes, I guess. And in my case, the job compute is up and running. I can figure out from here. Let me go to my pipeline and let us see what happens. Now this step should move forward from waiting for the resource to initialize. Let us see. It should take a couple of minutes now from here. Yeah, you can see it took 5 minutes to start a compute. It will show you all the logs, who started this compute, when this API was called, and how much time it took to start a compute. Let me do a quick refresh. I'll just get inside it and cool. Still it is, yeah, cool. You can see here it is waiting for the resource, and from there it took to the next step called initialize, and then it is setting up a tables now. So this should take very less time now. Now it will just go to the notebook and it will try to execute all the commands in the notebook. So in the notebook we have create command, create table command. There were 5 tables, so you should see 5 tables that will have the dependencies, that will have the streaming tables, your live tables, materialized view. What are all this? We are going to talk about them in part 2. Don't worry. Oh cool, you can see you got a graph which says that these are the bronze tables, then we have a silver table, and then we have a gold tables. Gold tables are nothing but a materialized views. You can see them here, and you get a beautiful statistics. Like if you click on the customers table, it shows how many seconds it took to execute, on what date and time this was executed, and it's a streaming table. Just remember this streaming table. We are going to see how this table was created, and then we have a data quality tab that will show you exactly how many records got written. This is amazing. When it comes to reconciliation, it's so easy to detect like how many records were written and how many got dropped and so on. And then we have something called schema that shows you all the column headers with the data types. And then you have something called flow. You can switch it between the tabs. It's so amazing. You can switch it between the tabs, and every table will show you the details. For example, let me switch to the silver sales order clean table. You get all the details here. It's still a streaming table. Now moving further to the data quality, here we have written and dropped, and we have one expectation. So we have set up an expectation in the silver table, and you can see here we have taken an action called drop. So what is this expectation? How we have set up this? We are going to see it. Okay. And finally we have a gold tables. These are a materialized view. What are materialized view? We are going to talk about it. So let me take a moment. Let me go to the compute, and you can see your job compute is still up and running. Remember, we used a development mode. That is the reason why your job compute is still up and running. Now let me go back to my catalog. I think I cannot show the tables because my compute is not running here. I have not turned on my all-purpose compute, because in the catalog you cannot attach a job compute here. So in the legacy we have Hive Metastore, and I cannot show you the tables here, but in the part 2, when I move to the SQL, I'll be showing you how the tables actually looks like. Okay, so that's all about the part 1, talking about the Delta Live table configurations and running a pipeline. So stay tuned. I hope you like this video. Please subscribe to my channel, and just stay tuned for the part 2, where I'm going to explain you the Delta Live table SQL syntax. See you. Bye bye. Thank you for watching this.